Watching the news in English is a great way to improve your English, but unfortunately, sometimes the news reporters will use some very advanced vocabulary, idioms, maybe some English phrasal verbs. So, in this lesson, we are going to look at a newscast from a station called Al Jazeera. And in this interview, you will hear three voices. One is from Elizabeth. She is sitting at a desk. She sounds British to me. And then you will hear a translator for President Erdoğan of Turkey. He also sounds British. But there will be a woman. Her name is Salam. And to me, it sounds like she has a Turkish accent. Hearing people speak English with different accents is another great way to improve your English. And the topic we are going to talk about today is going to be very controversial. It's going to involve four countries: Israel, Palestine, Iran, Turkey, or Turkey. I want to be clear. We will only be talking about the governments and not the citizens of these countries. As an American, I often don't agree with what my government does. Also, I can imagine the comment section will be filled with people expressing their opinion. Free Palestine often shows up in the comments, which is great. I'm just asking if you could be respectful, even though we are talking about a topic where people have a lot of emotion. And as always, as an English teacher, I will not include my opinion. I will just talk about the facts. However, I do hope the killing stops in this area as soon as possible. In English, we have two major wars called World War I and World War II. Some people think this could be the start of World War III. Israel, Gaza, Ukraine, Russia. There is a lot of war around the world right now. And we will be discussing how Turkey might intervene in Israel. We'll talk about what that looks like a little later. There is also talk of Iran getting involved in this war. I'm not saying if it's right or wrong. I just hope the killing can stop as quickly as possible. With that said, let's take a look at a clip from Al Jazeera. I have slowed down the clip a little bit and I have put subtitles on the screen. Hopefully that will help with your understanding.
Where President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan says his country could intervene in Israel's war on Gaza. He was speaking to members of his party on Sunday. Erdoğan made references to the 2020 conflict in Libya, when Turkey sent troops to support the government. He also mentioned last year's operation when Turkey's ally, Azerbaijan, took control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region.
In that news clip, they mentioned party, but they didn't say political party. So this is not a birthday party. This is not a fun event. It's all political. And if you have been watching my previous English lessons about politics, you will know that we have two major parties in the United States: the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. For each word or term or idiom or phrasal verb, I will have a simple definition and I will also use it in a sentence. What is a political party? It's a group of people with the same ideas about how to run a country. And here's the sentence: the political party won the election and now they will make new laws. But they also mentioned ally. What is an ally? It's a country or a person that helps and supports another. You could also use the word friend for ally. Turkey is an ally of many countries in the region. Turkey is trying to be an ally to those people in Palestine.
Where President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan says his country could intervene in Israel's war on Gaza. He was speaking to members of his party on Sunday. Erdoğan made references to the 2020 conflict in Libya, when Turkey sent troops to support the government. He also mentioned last year's operation when Turkey's ally Azerbaijan took control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Erdogan says Turkey could do something similar in Israel.
We also have the word similar, and it sounds almost like same. What does similar mean? Almost the same, but not exactly. The two countries have similar interests in the conflict. And a little later in the lesson, we will talk about how Turkey and Iran are both similar, but they're also very different.
He also mentioned last year's operation when Turkey's ally Azerbaijan took control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Erdogan says Turkey could do something similar in Israel, but didn't elaborate.
We need to be very strong so that Israel cannot do these ridiculous things to Palestine.
Elaborate is the next one. Elaborate. And that means to explain something in more detail. The president will elaborate on the plan to help the other country. As an English teacher, it can be pretty tricky. I want to teach the material, but if I elaborate too much, people will start to get bored.
Just as we entered Karabakh, just as we entered Libya, we can do something similar to them. There is no reason for us not to. We only have to be strong so that we can take these steps.
Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Sinem Korsiolu. She's joining us live from Istanbul. Sinem, what are Turkey's options here?
Elizabeth, first let me underline that we're a bit lost in translation in this topic.
Salam, the woman in Istanbul, says, let me underline a couple times. So in the picture, you can see the word thesis. Well, thesis is underlined. There is a line below that word. That's what an underline is, but she uses underline as an idiom, meaning to say something very important. Let me underline that peace is our main goal. Okay, this happens quite a bit when you're going from one language to another. We say that you are translating. President Erdoğan was speaking Turkish. His words were translated into English. Sometimes that meaning is a little different from the original Turkish. So here is the definition if something is lost in translation. It's when the meaning of something is not clear because it was not translated well. And when you're dealing with governments and what their plan of action is, it can be very specific and hard to translate. Here's a sentence. The message was lost in translation and caused some confusion. Some people thought when President Erdoğan said that he wants to intervene in Palestine, that he was going to bring soldiers in. And that is not what he means. We'll talk about boots on the ground in a minute. Turkey got involved in conflicts in Libya and also Armenia and Azerbaijan. There is a region that Armenia and Azerbaijan are fighting over, and it's called the Nagorno-Karabakh. Nagorno-Karabakh. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's a region in between Armenia and Azerbaijan that has been fought over for a few decades. And Turkey sometimes helps out Azerbaijan. There is a long history with Turkey and Armenia that I really don't want to talk about right now.
Elizabeth, first let me underline that we're a bit lost in translation in this topic because many international media outlets have translated Erdoğan's speech as if he said we can do the same in Israel. So I have to underline that he gave the Turkish military support in the Karabakh and Libya wars as the reference, which were no boots on the ground strategy for Turkey. This is very important.
But President Erdoğan was clear that he did not want to have any boots on the ground. That is an idiom. It means no soldiers will be sent to fight in a country. The government promised there would be no boots on the ground in the conflict. So Turkey might lend resources, they might lend technology, but they will not have any soldiers fighting on the ground in Gaza or Israel. Clearly, in that picture, there are boots on the ground. There are soldiers walking in that territory. We might call that an on the ground operation. Military actions that take place in a certain area. The army is planning on the ground operations to support their allies. I tried to use a couple words in there that would be review. If you are enjoying this English lesson, do you mind hitting that like button? And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another English lesson.
Which were no boots on the ground strategy for Turkey. This is very important because Turkey has many military involvements, like military operations that it has conducted since 2019 in northern Syria, like the operation in Afrin and other places. And those were on the ground operations. Turkish military were involved along with the Syrian opposition fighter groups. But here he's talking about another example where a Turkish army was involved in technology terms with its armed drones, but no boots on the ground.
You also heard the word opposition, and this is almost like opponent, which I have talked about in other English lessons. But what is the opposition? It's a group of people or countries that are against something. So in that region, Israel is experiencing a lot of opposition. A lot of people in that region, a lot of governments in that region are against or opposed to what Israel has been doing over the last few months. And here is a sentence. The opposition did not agree with the government's decision to intervene. Let's talk about those two words there. Intervene with invade. Intervene isn't as serious as invading. Intervene might just mean to help out in some way. Invading, that means soldiers are going into the territory. There are boots on the ground. They also mentioned armed drones. Maybe Turkey will supply Palestine with some armed drones. In the picture, that is an armed drone. Unmanned flying vehicles. So no people are inside of these things that can fly, but they have weapons. The military used armed drones to gather information and attack targets.
And those were on the ground operations. Turkish military were involved along with the Syrian opposition fighter groups. But here he's talking about another example where a Turkish army was involved in technology terms with its armed drones, but no boots on the ground. But Turkish military supported the paramilitary groups on the ground in Libya and the Azerbaijan military in Nagorno-Karabakh. So
in the past, Turkey has helped the paramilitary. So there have been paramilitary operations in Libya and Syria. What does paramilitary mean? An unofficial military group that is not part of the official army. So they are an army or a military without an official country. The paramilitary forces were called in to help during the conflict. So there are two really powerful countries in the region that will probably help out in Gaza, and they are Turkey and Iran. They are very similar, to use that word again, but they're also very different. So let's talk about how Turkey is a secular country. What does that mean, secular? It means not connected for religion. In Turkey, it is a Muslim majority country, which means most people in the country, at least more than 50%, would call themselves Muslim. But the government is not a religious government, even though the Turkish flag has a crescent moon on it, which is often associated with Islam. Okay, so Islam is the religion in English. Muslims are people who follow the religion of Islam. In the United States, we have a secular government. They are not tied to any religion. But Iran is a country that we would call a theocracy. That means the government is somehow related to a religion. And for Iran, that would be Islam. A theocracy is a type of government where religious leaders control the country, and religious laws are the main laws. If you are watching this and you are Muslim, you might already know this, so this might be for all of the non-Muslim viewers. But there are two major parts to the religion of Islam. There are Sunni Muslims and there are Shia Muslims. So let's take a look at the official definition. What is a Sunni Muslim? It's the largest group of Muslims who follow the teachings of Prophet Muhammad and his companions. Most Muslims in the world are Sunni. I think if you would ask most people in Turkey who are Muslim, they would probably identify as Sunni. So in Iran, the people who are Muslim there are Shias. And these two types of Muslims broke off from each other very early on, shortly after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. And Shias are a group of Muslims who believe that leadership should have stayed within the family of Prophet Muhammad. Iran has many Shia Muslims who follow different religious practices than Sunni Muslims. So you could almost say that Turkey is trying to gain more power in that region than Iran. Both countries want to have influence in that area. So that is probably why Erdoğan came out with that speech. Some very tricky topics we covered. Let me know in the comments where I made some mistakes. If you're looking for more English with the news, take a look down there. I did one on when a leader of Hamas was assassinated. Thanks for watching. See you next time.